The pick is in.
The Carolina Panthers have made a selection in the 2024 NFL Draft. Alongside Locked On College Football host Spencer McLaughlin, I'm Tenitra Batiste, and we are joined by Julian Council of Locked On Panthers to break down the Panthers selecting Xavier Legette with the number 32 pick. So, Julian, you were thinking we were going to have this combo maybe on day 2, but here we are. So how shocked were you? How surprised were you that the Panthers got back into round 1 to make this pick?
Yeah, I was very surprised. I was not expecting this at all. Now, I'm not surprised by the selection. Like you talked about, we were going to have this conversation on Friday evening. I thought we were going to have the conversation about the Panthers potentially selecting Xavier Legette. The only logic to doing this is the 5th-year option. That's basically it to me at this point in time. They give up a 5th-round pick and get a 6th-round pick in exchange. Dan Morgan, who's the GM now here in Carolina, came from Buffalo where he worked with Brandon Beane, who's a GM there in Buffalo. So they were able to get a nice little deal together for the Panthers to move up 1 spot to get Legette. That's the only reason this makes any sense at all. Now, is it the player the Panthers should have taken? There's certainly some debate about that as guys like A.D. Mitchell from Texas are on the board, Ladd McConkey from Georgia, some names that we talk about, just like Xavier Legette, who the Panthers clearly were interested in, had a large contingent down in Columbia, South Carolina, not too far from Charlotte. So I wouldn't be surprised. It's only an hour and a half. You might as well get down there and check out a pro day for a player who could be there at 33, or as you see, they moved to 32 for. So I'm surprised that it happened tonight, but I'm not surprised necessarily that the pick is Xavier Legette here in Carolina.
Yeah, but you make a good point about the fact that there is an A.D. Mitchell, there is a Ladd McConkey. So why Xavier Legette? What did they see in him that was so special?
Well, you look at him, he's a physical specimen. And this is a coaching staff now with Dave Canales who come here to Carolina that have roots deep-rooted in Seattle. Like the offensive coaching staff, majority of them were there in Seattle under Pete Carroll. A player that they compare A.D. Mitchell to and Dane Brugler of The Athletic compared to is DK Metcalf. Now, when you look at college, Legette was not the same player as Metcalf was back at Ole Miss. Metcalf was a stud of A.J. Brown in that offense, and Legette for 4 years did absolutely nothing at South Carolina. I understand that he had some issues where he lost both his parents, had a motorcycle accident, and until this past season at South Carolina where he blew up, he was a player who did not produce, but he is 6'1", 217, has the speed, has the side, the physicality, and he said today after being selected, this is a man's game, and I'm a man. And looking at him, absolutely that is the case. They look at him as someone who can come in, who can be that physical specimen and can be able to make some plays. He's explosive. That's why they like him compared, I guess, A.D. Mitchell or Ladd McConkey and some of the other guys that were available there to them at 32.
And hey, you get Bryce Young a weapon, and that's all good. For more on the Panthers, subscribe to Locked On Panthers on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So when you take a look, Spencer, and you think back to Legette's days at South Carolina, 2 things. What did you see was maybe the upside for him and the potential he had, but maybe what are some of the areas where you know he'll have to improve in order to be good at this next level?
Well, I think for Panthers fans, you got to look and see Kelvin Benjamin, draft pick from many years ago out of Florida State, and just that big-bodied guy, not necessarily a speedster, but someone you throw the ball up to in 50-50 situations, and someone who just presents a big target with a big catch radius. And you know, this is at some level a bit of a surprising move from the Panthers. I don't think a lot of people expected this move to be made. I think Julian made a good point about the 5th-year option being there as, you know, what having a first-round designation does for you from an organizational standpoint. But, you know, when you talk about receivers, I mean, Legette and Ricky Pearsall from Florida, both slipped into the first round. I don't think a lot of people had those guys on their big boards as first-round receivers. So I'm really interested to see how they both work out, because I think both, frankly, have the potential for different reasons to be picks you look at and go, was that really the best option you went, or why'd you take this guy when that guy was available there? And certainly A.D. Mitchell will be the first player that probably comes to mind.
For continuing coverage of the 2024 NFL Draft, subscribe to Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.